Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Superfeeler podcast. My name is Lori, and I am very excited today to be joined by Tess Gecha, who is a doctoral researcher at the University of Houston, studying under Carla Sharp, I believe.
Yes.
Very, very exciting. Funny, her name has come up a bunch of times on this show in the last little bit. So
I'm sure.
Yes, very exciting. I also really want to have her on the show, so I will probably get that going somehow. So yeah, you're doing some really cool work around. Well, you've done some cool work around intergenerational kind of transmission of BPD, is my understanding. And then now you're doing some cool work about siblings, which I think is very important just based on my own lived experience. So curious if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. So first off, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited about it. But yes, so I am a fourth year clinical psychology doctoral student at the University of Houston, studying under Dr. Carla Sharp, working in her developmental psychopathology lab, which focuses on studying the development of personality disorder in adolescents. And kind of where I fit in within the lab is I'm interested in, as you were saying before, the intergenerational transmission of psychopathology, including personality disorder, as well as trauma. But that trauma piece, I don't really get to research that as much in this context, just because that's not one of Dr. Carla Sharp's focuses, but I kind of do that in my clinical work.
Yeah, and they're so connected, it's hard to separate them anyway.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, my thesis focused on parent emotion socialization in mothers who have borderline personality disorder and kind of how that affects the ways in which they respond to their children's negative emotions. So I'm kind of interested in that caregiving piece. I'm also interested in caregiving interventions that can kind of help stop the transmission of psychopathology and negative consequences associated with trauma from one generation to the next. So I actually worked on a really nice mentalizing caregiving intervention called the mediational intervention for sensitizing caregivers. So I've served as a clinician on that, as well as kind of the researcher. So I kind of wear both hats for that one. And then currently I am doing my dissertation study looking at personal growth in individuals who have siblings with personality disorder. And that's something that I just kind of, over the years, I've developed that interest. And I think it fits nicely with our lab in that it's the study of personality disorder, but also thinking about, caregiving context, but also the broader family unit and context, and kind of how that is both affected by, having a loved one with personality disorder, and how maybe that contributes in some way, or just kind of to family functioning overall.
Yeah, and it certainly does. I can speak to that from personal experience. My sister and I are like completely estranged, and I know for a fact that that's because of when I was symptomatic and not, treated, which is fair. So, okay, I have so many questions. I want to dive into your previous work, which was more about that like parents with BPD and how they reacted to their children's emotions, because there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are mothers. And I think it's a very complicated dynamic, because there's also in the BPD space, and it sounds like you're doing mostly work around personality disorders generally, but I'll speak to BPD in this context. There's a lot of mother blame. And I think in the seemingly development of BPD, but then there's also this. So then I think a lot of people who have BPD who are parents have a lot of shame and a lot of fear about how they're going to further impact their kids. So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that in more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's there. And so for my master's thesis, the project that we're talking about, it's actually the data is coming from a previous lab student. Her name is Kiana Cano. I may be mispronouncing her last name. I hope not. But anyways, the study was looking at the acceptability and feasibility of that MISC intervention I was talking about in mothers who have BPD. And she had a qualitative piece of it. I didn't read like kind of the in-depth stories of it, but from kind of conversations we had and conversations among other lab members who are familiar with that work, a lot of shame did come out from that, which is, heartbreaking to think about. In addition, and I feel like in any mother context, you're there's kind of some shame that comes with it in terms of it's kind of inevitable. Oh, I'm doing something wrong. I should be doing better, that sort of thing. But I do think it's especially prominent in mothers who have BPD. And that's why I think this sort of research is really needed, because we can kind of identify the ways in which we can support these mothers. So, they can respond better to their children who are having negative emotions. So, that shame also doesn't fall on them. And then we can kind of help stop that transmission of negative outcomes. And actually interesting, and we are really glad to see this. And we looked at 2 different types of parent emotion socialization, which really just means the ways in which parents or caregivers respond to their children when experiencing emotions, and how to kind of model for them healthy ways to regulate their emotions and express their emotions. But there are no differences in the use of positive responses to their children's negative emotions. So kind of, mothers with BPD in our study, there are control mothers who didn't have BPD, but they're kind of on that same playing field, which is really nice to see. But we did see significant difference, statistically by research standards, which again, sometimes it's hard to separate that with like clinical significance in everyday life kind of thing. But in the negative responses to children's negative emotions, there was kind of a little bit more of a tendency within mothers with BPD to struggle more with that and
fair.
Kind of respond. Yeah, exactly. And thinking about it, individuals with BPD tend to have more difficulties with emotion regulation. So kind of being presented with, a loved one, their child who's experiencing these negative emotions. I feel like it could be easy to try and help your child just move on from it, which maybe for that, the child could be a little bit dismissing. But at the end of the day, the caregiver, the mom wants to help their child, I think. I think all moms want to do that. But it's just kind of helping those mothers do so in a way that, is actually productive and helpful for both, her and her child.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that realistically all parents are doing the best they can. And it sounds like the intervention that you were trying to implement is trying to help them do better, right? Give them skills to do so. So what did that intervention look like?
Yeah, so the intervention, it's a video feedback based intervention that draws on both mentalizing and attachment theory. So kind of how it looks is you have a clinician or you have someone who it's been tested in various settings. So sometimes there's community kind of organizers and people who work within like NGOs who are administering the intervention, but it's some sort of administrator, clinician working with a caregiver. And the first kind of step is videotaping an interaction between the caregiver and their child. And then from that point forward in the following sessions, together they look at that video. So first for the first like few minutes, they'll watch it together, kind of talk about the emotional tone, and things like that, just kind of first impressions. And then they start together from the very beginning and just kind of separate it blow by blow, a few seconds at a time. So within the session, you're really kind of with a fine comb going through the interactions. And the idea is really to help caregivers mentalize their children better, kind of have their mind in mind, and really try to help them understand the impact of their actions on their children.
Right.
So with Kiana's dissertation study that she ran, it was kind of the first step of testing the intervention in mothers who have borderline personality disorder. So it's really just, she didn't actually administer the intervention, but she interviewed mothers to see how they might respond and how they might like it, to see if, this is something they're interested in. So that's kind of that first step. And I know Dr. Sharp and Dr. Kuno, Kiana, they're also kind of in talks of maybe doing an intervention, like that next step. So testing the intervention in mothers with BPD.
It sounds like it could make a lot of sense, that intervention. And it also sounds like it could be incredibly hard and like emotionally taxing to do. I'm sure that people expressed that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also interesting too because so the study that I worked on, it's kind of part of my external practicum experience as a graduate student in the clinical psychology program, meaning that's just kind of where I do my therapy and kind of how I get that experience. But we are working with mothers who've experienced domestic violence. So that comes with its own host of challenges and kind of moments and things where, you know, they feel shameful about maybe not being able to be present with their child because they're, you know, contending with so many different things. I mean, the mothers we were working with were coming from shelters, so really fresh off kind of that domestic violence incident or incidents, because, you know, oftentimes it's repeated. But, you know, again, trying to find housing, trying to support your family financially. There's so many different things going on that it's easy for what we kind of say, your mind to become noisy, where it's hard for you to really, really slow down and understand not only what's going on within you, but also your child and really how you're impacting your child. And I think individuals with BPD too can have difficulties with that. So that's why I feel like it is such an appropriate intervention for this population. And I think, again, that mentalizing focus is really important for working with mothers, because one's mentalizing capacity, which I probably should explain a little bit more.
I was literally just going to say, I was like, mentalization comes up a decent amount on this show, but if you could explain it just in case somebody's just listening to this one episode, that would be very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. So when I say mentalizing capacity, I'm referring to one's ability to think about and understand the mental states of both the self and others. And when I say mental states, I'm referring to, people's thoughts, feelings, desires, wants, all those sort of things. So, and we like to think that, well, there's the mentalizing theory, which kind of posits that one first develops their mentalizing capacity within the caregiving environment and relationships. That's kind of what we call like the laboratory for developing mentalizing capacity. So it's, you know, so critical for caregivers to model, really, really good mentalizing practices and modeling those sort of things for their child. So I think it's important to kind of come in there early for mothers and other types of caregivers, fathers, grandparents, what have you, just to really get in there early and make sure that they're modeling best kind of mentalizing practices for their children, because good mentalizing capacity is associated with a lot of positive outcomes,
which is probably why there is some intergenerational
absolutely, yeah.
I don't know why the word's not coming to me right now, but passing down to transmission. Thank you. I was like, I know the word, I said it earlier. Some intergenerational transmission of the lack of ability to mentalize appropriately, likely. And just for some context, so a couple of context pieces. One, my life was changed by DBT. So I have not done mentalization-based therapy, but I've heard a lot about it and I'm really interested in it. So I'm way more like of a DBT-minded person, not just because that was my experience. And my father most certainly has BPD, and just was never diagnosed. And he admits that. So I'm not spreading, rumors on this podcast. He fully admits that, but he's a 60-something-year-old man, and that's not something that happens very often. And so I often think about the ways that I learned to regulate or not to regulate my emotions, and I guess process, like you're saying, other people's mental states and my own, and how that was definitely in some ways transmitted from my father to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what does the research show about that intergenerational transmission of BPD?
Yeah, so definitely, contributes and is there to some extent, but what exactly does that mean? What does that look like? And we kind of think about this kind of diathesis stress model, if you want to say. And so meaning, how much of is someone genetically predisposed to developing BPD? So a lot of times we think about emotional sensitivity which is genetically kind of passed down. So if someone has that higher genetic loading for that, if that person is placed in an environment where they feel like they're not supported emotionally, they may feel invalidated, those sort of things that are coming from the environment, then it makes it more likely for, the child to develop BPD. And then that just kind of unfortunately can continue and until something kind of gets in there and helps to stop it, which, doesn't just happen over, even in one clean sweep. A lot of times it takes time to do that. And yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm always so proud of the listeners of this show who have kids that are trying to do it differently, right? They are going to therapy, they are seeking out resources, they are doing all these things, and it's like that has to be a good way to help stop that transmission.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and similar to my work with clients who have experienced trauma, I've worked with other clients without or outside of the context of domestic violence specifically, but just kind of thinking about one of my clients coming up in particular. She's just a wonderful person to work with, but thinking about kind of her family and from her grandma, that maybe X, Y, and Z wasn't there, but she had, these two things that were really helpful for my client to kind of hold on to, and she learned from that. And then the same with her mother. There's still some things missing there, but, there was a little bit more. There are a little bit more positive things for my client. And then my client, that's kind of when things really started to stick and kind of stop that transmission of trauma. So it was really interesting for me to kind of see that in a clinical setting.
Totally. And it's such a hopeful message because I think sometimes, I think about the adverse childhood experiences study, which I'm sure you know all about.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for some people that can feel really upsetting because it's like, oh, well, I have all this trauma and now my life's going to be ruined. But there are ways to address these things and to continue on in a way that's different than how you were brought up.
I was about to say, absolutely. And kind of that brings me to kind of the idea of personal growth, because obviously I'm studying that in my dissertation study within the context of siblings or individuals who have siblings with personality disorder, but as well in my work with trauma clients. There's a lot of overlap, as you can tell, but they're really just because you've gone through this difficult thing, you're going through this difficult thing, this bad thing has happened to you. Yes, that's difficult. Yes, that's hard. That's going to come with pains and challenges. And there's the room for growth. You can, build new coping skills. You can become more confident. You can have a better outlook on life, a new, more positive outlook on life, maybe improved interpersonal relationships. You can connect with someone who has gone through a similar experience in ways that other people who have not had that experience can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we think about a family unit, and this is why I'm so fascinated by the sibling research, is they have presumably, not always, but the same parents or same upbringing, similar upbringing to the other child. And potentially, if these genetic factors are in place, which sounds like they are, but we don't know exactly what they are, they would usually have the same genetic factors that could cause some of these emotion regulation challenges. So what does the research show around just siblings of people with BPD generally and their lives and the impacts?
Yeah, so it's a very understudied area of research, hence why I kind of wanted to look into it more. There have been about 6 studies that have looked at the experiences of siblings of people who have personality disorder. And it really does not paint the most optimistic picture of kind of what's going on for them. It's showing that they experience interpersonal difficulties, strained family relationships, negative emotions, sadness, kind of difficulties coping with having a sibling with personality disorder. But yeah, there really has not been any sort of investigation into whether these siblings can experience personal growth. And as I was saying before, that with a situation that is hard, that is difficult, that can come with, its own challenges, that doesn't mean it negates any room for growth, any area for growth. So just because, what we know right now based on the research is that these siblings experience challenges, they tend to experience challenges. We don't know if they can experience growth. They very well may. We don't know. We haven't investigated yet. So that's where I'm kind of hoping to fill that gap in research.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing your results because I think having some sort of positive sibling story around this issue will
Mhm.
be really, really, really helpful. And I think validating to not only the people who have experienced, like the sibling who has experienced hardship, I'm assuming, and the person who's caused that hardship, aka
Mhm.
people like me,
Mhm.
because I think there's a lot of shame and hopelessness that comes of, well, these are things I've done in my past, and
Mhm.
now it's impacted my sibling, but there's nothing I can do about it. And so if there's not that the sibling obviously is the one that is going to be, helping with this positive growth, but
Mhm.
to be able to know that that positive growth can exist for the person, I think would be
Yeah.
really comforting for people.
Absolutely. And you were saying earlier that your relationship with your sibling, I think you said estranged, yeah?
Yeah, like fully. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's a lot of the participants that we've kind of reached out to thus far. We've completed about, I think, 50. I've reached out to
Oh,
50
wow.
participants and had them participate. Yeah, but I've had quite a few people reach out and say like, well, thank you for doing this research. I'm estranged from my sibling. Seems like
Mm-hmm.
they're having difficulty coping. I mean, it's a very sad situation. I think it can be a sad situation for both parties. One reason why I'm interested in this research is that my sibling has bipolar disorder. Different
I was
disorder.
wondering why you're interested in
Yeah.
this. Yeah. I was, you know what? I
Um,
usually ask researchers that question first and I totally spaced, but yes.
I was
Okay.
preparing
Bipolar
for
disorder. Okay.
it.
Good. I love it. Okay. Go ahead.
But yeah, I like to think there's, many factors that go into it, but certainly I think one of it is the fact that, I grew up and have a sibling, with bipolar disorder. And, that was difficult for me to navigate, especially as an adolescent when you're kind of faced with this big developmental task of, figuring out your identity, establishing your sense of identity. And what it looked like in my family was, just a lot of parents' attention was kind of on that to support my sibling, which was needed, was really needed. That's what she needed. She needed that support, and I felt it would have been nice to receive a little bit more support. So that
I've heard
it
that
was
from so
difficult.
many people. Yeah. It
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
and it was hard to navigate. It was hard to navigate. It's
Mm,
no one's fault, but there have been times too within my relationship with my sibling where I felt, or there's more distance, and the
yeah.
emotional distance was purposeful in a sense, and I kind of carried that shame with me in the sense of feeling like I should be doing more. I should support my sibling more, and kind of grappling with that, and with hopefully more research in this area, and even focusing on the strengths and positives that can come of this situation. If we can better support both siblings, hopefully we can kind of position siblings of people with personality disorder or other types of mental illness, to hopefully be able to support their sibling with mental illness, or, at least cope better, and being able to have a positive relationship. Because again, I think it can be really painful for both parties involved to kind of have that estranged relationship.
Totally. And then support themselves, right? Like not necessarily taking on that
Mhm.
burden of needing to be there for your sibling, but just being able to survive the trauma that can come
Yes.
from these
Yes.
experiences. And
Fine line. It's hard to balance
yes,
those things.
100%. Yeah, you got to put your oxygen mask on yourself first, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So the current study that you're working on, which we'll talk about more formally later for the IRB stuff, that we
Sure.
can read the exact thing that they want us to
Yes.
say. I've been there, done that, understand how that works. But for this particular study, you're looking at the experiences of people who have siblings with BPD and their own personal
Mhm.
growth without putting in place any sort of intervention, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. And out of curiosity, if you were to put into place some sort of intervention, have you thought about what that might look like, or is this way too soon to even have an idea of what might be needed?
Yeah, I think kind of the next we're trying to figure out, based on this research to see kind of what a sibling's place is maybe in therapy, and see if there's,
Mm-hmm.
mileage to include siblings in family therapy more. Because right now, there's a focus on individual therapy, which we know is helpful, but kind of curious to see whether siblings can play more role in that kind of journey toward recovery in a therapy setting, in a therapy context. Exactly how that's going to look, I'm not quite sure. But, thinking about DBT and MBT, which are both, very recommended for individuals with personality disorders. I know, their family sessions and kind of different things for that. So maybe emphasizing it a little bit more could be nice. And also hearing more from these siblings, I think, to see if there's a need, if they're interested in receiving treatment, if they're seeking treatment.
Totally.
Because we do know, from the research that there are these difficulties and challenges, but, we're not quite sure if they're interested in treatment. That's something they want to do. So that's something I'm kind of curious about as well.
Yeah, and you can't force people to do treatment
Exactly,
usually.
yes.
So yeah, like they need to be willing to be bought in, which is that'll be really interesting to see what people say. I think it'll depend so much on the relationship and where they're at with their relationship, right?
Yeah,
But you've
absolutely.
got 50 people already, which is great. Do you have a goal number that you're trying to get to?
300. So
Oh my God. Okay.
yeah, we'll see if we get there, but fingers crossed.
Yes, you'll get there. That's a huge sample size. That's great. And it's all qualitative then that what you're working on?
So quantitative and qualitative.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So we decided we wanted to do what we call like this mixed methods approach. So using both quantitative and qualitative, because personal growth has not been studied in individuals who have siblings with personality disorders. We really don't know what it could look like, if it's even possible. So we have certain quantitative measures, self-report measures that kind of give you a number as to, how much growth you might have experienced based on, certain questions, certain metrics. But that's that quantitative piece. And then the qualitative piece is a semi-structured interview in which, I'm meeting with a participant. I haven't conducted any of them yet, but just trying to get to understand, their experience having a sibling with personality disorder, as well as, that experience of personal growth and what's helped facilitate that growth, what's helped hinder that growth, really just to see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really biased. I love qualitative research so much more than quantitative, probably because I'm bad at math.
It's hard, though. It takes time.
It's brutal. Don't get me wrong, but it's so important. Like the stories are just so important. So I'm so glad that it's mixed methods. What's your definition of personal growth? Like, obviously, this area of research hasn't happened before, but I'm sure there's been 100 million studies about personal growth as a concept.
Yeah. So there's a lot of definitions, and a popular term is post-traumatic growth.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So it's similar, but we kind of, didn't want to name it that because, naming having someone with a sibling with personality disorder a trauma, that doesn't feel right. It's not like
it doesn't necessarily mean it's traumatic. I mean, it probably was at times, but I'm glad you chose that. As a person who really tries to approach everything strengths-based, I think that your change from that is good.
Absolutely. And we didn't want to imply that was that, but, it can be difficult, can be stressful. So there is kind of more of a personal growth literature that isn't, doesn't say post-traumatic growth, but rather personal growth, which really just talks about growth and personal development that can happen in the midst of stressful, like trying life experiences or transitions. And that personal development, personal growth can manifest in various ways. So it can be, improved interpersonal relationships, new coping skills, greater empathy, better or more positive outlook on life. So there's many different ways to kind of quantify and qualify that.
Interesting. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what people talk about in terms of what growth was important to them.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's hard to know, right? And has there been similar research around other mental illnesses and siblings?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research on the experiences of siblings of people with schizophrenia and first episode psychosis. Yeah, and similar to the research out there on siblings of people with personality disorder, they highlight a lot of challenges, similar challenges to the ones that I mentioned earlier. But that research base, there were positive outcomes and personal growth that was emerging from, siblings' stories and the data that was kind of coming out. So things like greater empathy, greater caring towards other, more sensitivity, greater mental health knowledge, things like that. Or feeling like a more united family kind of unit that was also coming out too. So that's something that I kind of perked my ears a little bit, and I was like, so this seems like personal growth is happening in this population. So, there are some similarities in the disorder. So, could it be possible in siblings of people with personality disorder? And I think yes. I think yes. I'm hoping yes. So we'll see what the data says.
Yeah, amazing. Well, when you're done the study, you'll have to come back on and tell us what you found.
Sure. Absolutely.
So you are recruiting for this. Do you want to tell us about what that looks like for people who might want to participate or might have a sibling who wants to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of go revert to that IRB
Yeah.
official script for that. But so we're looking for individuals to participate in our online study about personal growth in siblings of people with personality disorder. The study's been approved by the University of Houston's IRB, and you're eligible to participate if you are fluent in English, you're 18 years of age or older, and you have a sibling with personality disorder. And as a part of the study, you'll complete one online questionnaire, which takes roughly 30 to 40 minutes to complete. And then after, you'll have the option to enter a raffle to win one of $120 Amazon gift cards. So if you are interested in participating, Lori mentioned that she'd be able to post the information in the notes.
It'll be in the show notes, so you can look there.
Perfect. So there'll be a QR code for that to scan, or you can email us at dplsiblingstudy@gmail.com. We're also posting our information on Reddit communities. So a big one that we've been posting on is BPD Family.
Okay.
Also some Facebook groups we've been able to post on. Dr. Daniel Fox, he's a clinician in Houston. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. Yeah, okay, yes, fantastic. So he's posted on his YouTube page. So those are kind of the different places that we post. Some other ones as well. We're partnering with Sosh Bear Foundation.
Amazing. Okay, cool.
Alliance. Yeah, when I say partner, they've been helping promote, which is really lovely in their newsletters and social media and things like that. So those are kind of the different ways in which we're kind of promoting the study.
Awesome. And then, sorry, I know you read it, but then I spaced out apparently. Did you say North America only or anywhere as long as you speak English?
Anywhere as long as you speak English. And just also a plug, the Amazon gift cards can be applied to countries outside the US.
Okay, great. I didn't even think about that part. Okay, that's amazing. We're going to get you to 300. That's going to be great.
Fingers crossed. We'll see. I think you're a little ambitious with it. But we'll see.
Word of mouth. I mean, it is an area that I do feel like because of some negative feelings and some like estrangements and stuff that people aren't necessarily seeking out information about BPD if they're a sibling. So I can totally see where that would be maybe more challenging.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
we'll make sure we get this to as many people as we can.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your help.
Well, of course. I'm so glad you're doing this. I think it's a really interesting topic. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you really wanted to talk about today?
I think we about covered it. Again, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have similar feelings, but I do feel like this is a really important area to kind of dig our teeth in a little bit more. It's just really an understudied topic. And, we know that sibling relationships are very important, in family functioning, but we're just not really sure what it looks like. So we're hoping that this data from the study will help kind of highlight those things and what it really looks like, and also kind of taking more of that strength-based perspective, which I think is really nice. The research is going that route to incorporate that, I think will be really nice and a positive of the research.
Yeah, so important. So if anybody's listening to this and you have a sibling with BPD or you are a sibling with BPD, share it to others that you know might want to participate. It doesn't sound like it's a difficult thing to participate in. And I can't say it enough. Participating in research is so important and we should all do more of it because it's what actually helps move these fields forward and increase understanding. So, okay, I have one final question that I ask everyone. Okay. What is your favorite part of working with people with personality disorders?
Interesting. There's what's so interesting is working at an assessment clinic. Dr. Sharp runs an assessment clinic, and we evaluate adolescents who have concerns about personality disorder, and each person looks so different. And, the ways in which their personality disorder manifests just looks so different. But what I've seen is a lot of creativity which I think is really nice among individuals with personality disorder. And I think, in adolescence, these adolescents are maybe struggling to form that sense of identity. And there's kind of like some experimenting with it. And we've seen a lot of, or at least I've seen a lot of these adolescents kind of try to express and find themselves in different artistic ways. So I think that's been especially nice to see.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that answer. I have not heard that answer before. And we actually have somebody who got assessed at that clinic as a teen on the show, I think the week before this.
Oh,
so they're talking
fantastic.
about their...
Oh,
yeah, it's so random. When I said Carla's name has come up a lot in the last little bit, I mean, I'm not joking, although I actually need to email her and see if she's okay with us using her name. But yeah, I was assessed at that clinic as a teen, and it really changed their life. So
good. Well,
that's Violet's episode if people are looking for it.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm so glad to hear about that.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, it's so amazing the work that you guys do down there, because I should have been diagnosed as a teen. There's no question to me, right? And it makes such a big difference. I just had Dr. Alec Miller on as well, who obviously does a lot of work with adolescents. And it's incredibly important that we can help people get this understanding of themselves, the understanding of their family dynamic and skills as soon as we can. Because otherwise these things get more and more ingrained.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of at different conferences, research conferences, this has come up. But there really is a lack of, resources and access to assessments for personality disorder, especially within adolescents. So Dr. Sharp's clinic is one of the only, I think, in North America. And we have people, we do virtual appointments across states. I remember we did one or my colleagues did one somewhere in South America. Like there was a virtual based one. People have flown in. So it's important work that people want, but it's just hard to access, which is unfortunate. So I think we need, more available clinics and people who are interested in kind of providing that support in those evaluations. And to your point of, being assessed and catching these things earlier, I think that's so important. And I think that's so important in the work that we do in Dr. Sharp's lab and this assessment clinic is to kind of get adolescents when they're starting to veer off, but bring them back to that, more typical normative route that, ensures more positive outcomes. And another thing that I think is good too, and it kind of makes me think of the things that I'd like to, or one of my favorite things about working with individuals with BPD is, I think that emotional sensitivity can be a superpower when you harness it and when you're able to, be able to control it and regulate it. I think it's so important to, understanding people and empathizing with people and building those strong interpersonal relationships. But, if you're not equipped with the right tools to really use it in a productive way, it's difficult. But I think once individuals are given those tools, it can really be a strength.
Absolutely. That's why this podcast is called Super Feeler, because it's the superpower as well, right? So I 100% agree with you in every way. Well, thank you so much, Tess. It's been so great getting to know you, and thank you for all your work. I can't wait to see how it goes.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thanks so much for listening to the Super Feeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the unceded traditional territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to support the show, you can find bonus content on Patreon or donate directly on PayPal. If you're looking for peer support and joining the best BPD community out there, you can sign up for the Super Feelers Club or Skills Lab sessions for free at www.superfeeler.ca/peer support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a rating or review, and share it with someone who might find it helpful. It really does make a difference and helps more people find the show. Truly, that 5-star rating means way more than you think it does. Don't forget to follow me over on social media for announcements, show clips, and more. You can find links to everything over at my new site, www.superfeeler.ca. So much easier to remember than my hard-to-spell last name. Until next time, take good care of yourself and keep on super feeling. Lots of love, and thanks for listening.